STEM News Chronicle operates out of a home office, and this is my space. But we started I started really about 8 years ago, and just keeping connecting with friends and colleagues over the years, and we're exchanging emails back and forth, and then the emails turned into a little bit formal newsletter, and then that grew and so I say, hey, well, let's do this seriously. So that's what we started doing. Yeah.
That is fantastic. In 8 years, then you grew to a chronicle that is known worldwide, I assume.
Well, yeah, we have readers and subscribers in Australia, a couple places across Europe, Finland, just having some discussions with some individuals in South Africa, and of course across Canada as well. 78% of our readers are in the United States. Readers and subscribers are in the United States, and the others are 22% are spread, throughout the world. And across, we're hopeful of expanding that population in both groups.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, you never know exactly where your work is ending up and who is reading it, who are sharing it, and etc. So it would be nice. It would be nice if you get some feedback every now and then from people that you said, "What? I wasn't even aware of the fact that known in that country."
Yeah. That and that happens every now and then, which is good. It's a good thing.
Some months ago, the publisher of STEM News Chronicle, Mr. Lawrence King, contacted me with the following question. Many academically talented girls often leave STEM majors or shy away from careers in STEM here and in Europe. Do you have any insights? For a few days, I let my mind run over this sad but very true fact. And after having several conversations with different people concerning this matter, my personal thought went out to, we seem to live in a democratic system, what is containing a unified language. A language that is being imprinted in young creative minds, somewhere around the period of them attending a university. And with this I mean young people who are extremely enthusiastic about a particular topic, wanting to find out whether A, their first idea or theory regarding their question asked might be correct, and B, what else can be researched in this matter, run into a huge, massive wall as soon as they present their amazing theories spawned from creative thinking to their peers and professors. Sure, it is good to know and to understand what was once written by well-known scientists, both historical and modern names. But frankly, I am of the opinion that in the moment that we keep these brilliant minds from being creative and playing with known and accepted science, is killing one's open mind, as well as their personality in the end. Welcome, or welcome back to the Next Truth podcast, Let's Ask Questions. I am your host, Maria Anna van Dreil, and today we are speaking with the publisher and founder of STEM News Chronicle, Mr. Lawrence King. STEM thought leader, media personality, CEO, physicist and public speaker, Dr. Trina Coleman. And engineer, Mr. Brian Saunders. About the importance of STEM education and how STEM News Chronicle is bringing awareness to the general public concerning how we can inspire young people and let their minds set off on a voyage of discovery. Mr. King.
Yes.
Mr. Saunders and Dr. Coleman, welcome to the Next Truth podcast. Let's ask questions. Mr. King, or Larry, you are the publisher of STEM News Chronicle.
Yes, that's correct.
And I served to the website, which is, by the way, amazing. There's so much information about STEM education. But can you tell us who is Larry King and how did you establish this amazing website, this Chronicle?
Well, first, I want to talk about STEM News Chronicle and explain to your all that will be viewing the podcast just what STEM News Chronicle is. We're basically just a virtual network that's sharing information with the global audiences on issues dealing with science, technology, and engineering and education. All of the persons and individuals and organizations that connect with us are all advocates for STEM and diversity in STEM. So that's basically who we are. I'm basically a young guy who born and raised in Detroit. I now live in Metro Atlanta. I've always tried to continually improve myself as I mature. I always want to create opportunities that I've had through my career in engineering and marketing and business development with youngsters, so that I can encourage youngsters who look like me to want to be like me or others that look like me. My journey through life and my professional career has basically left no doubt in my mind that any youngster that desires to have a career in science and engineering can do so just by applying themselves. I always suggest to them, aim for the stars, because if you miss the star, you'll end up in the heaven someplace. And so that sort of encourages them to move ahead. And as I was reaching out through my network to get information about women in science, in engineering and technology, that's why I came across one of your podcasts, Maria. And so that's why I reached out to you a couple of months ago to ask you that question. So that's how we got connected.
You say women in science. Do you see yourself that women in science are not that much present, or is it equal? Is it balanced?
No, there's a significant lack of diversity, and I don't know what you want to call it, an achievement gap or career gap or whatever it is. Yes, women and minorities have historically been underrepresented in the technical fields.
According to you, why do you think that is happening like this? Why do you think that women are not that much present in science?
Well, there's a lot of reason, and I'm sure Dr. Coleman has some insight in that as well as Brian. But basically, the whole field of science and technology has been a male dominated team. The idea of who can do science has always had a limited number of responses to that. So that's basically, that's the culture that has to change. And because of the demands of a global economy right now and competition, that change is occurring. It's not occurring as fast as it should, but it is occurring.
And this is what STEM News Chronicle also addresses.
The articles that we have address various aspects of it. We get into discussions very at the early part of a career dealing in education. We've talked about diversity in the classroom, the lack of male teachers, and how that goes. 75% of the teachers, at least here in the United States, are female. And of course, the classrooms are mixed, but increasingly more diverse. So there's a big need to get more, increase the population of diverse teachers, specifically males, and specifically from our perspective, African-American males in front of the classroom.
Now, you brought two more guests to this interview, and you just also mentioned that Dr. Coleman has some insight about how it is that women are not that much present in science.
Yeah, yeah.
Can you do us the honor to introduce your guests that you brought with you?
Oh, absolutely. Dr. Trina Coleman, she received her undergraduate, her master's, and her doctorate's degree in physics from one of the renowned historically Black colleges and universities here in the United States, Hampton University. Brian is a guy that I met some years ago. We won't say how long ago we met because that talks to our age, but he's an electrical engineering student, electrical engineering graduate out of Purdue University, and he's done his master's degree at the Tuck School at the University of Dartmouth. So those are our two guests, and Trina, we'll let you go first and maybe talk to the issue of women that that Maria raised, and also talk about the importance of technologists subscribing to our newsletter, and what you get out of it.
All right. Well, thank you. And thank you for having me, Maria. And yes, I can speak volumes to the whole diversity and gender gap in science for women, and because they're connected in a way as far as myself and my colleagues, which are women in physics, African-American women in physics. You know, you can be smart, you can work hard, but you cannot change who you are as from a fundamental genetic standpoint. So I did not realize that as a student, that there was even an issue in academic and professional space. That's something that was not, you know, forefront or even talked about. So having 3 physics degrees and realizing that it was such an elite network, because particularly the discipline I focused on, which was nuclear physics, when it was time for me to go out and look for postdocs and jobs and things like that, I have been told to my face, I have no room in my group for you. Okay. So those types of things will cause a person like me to figure out another path. So I have stayed in STEM. My career has been focused around more so technology than science. However, I try to stay connected, and I do teach physics, and I've taught it for a while. But the underlying issue is doing research. If I go through a PhD program as a researcher and focus on topics, why not be a researcher when I graduate? Because there's a barrier there that I had to clear, and it was a monumentally huge barrier because there's so few people that do the type of work that I studied for. So that's my story. But to look at it from a more a broader scope, there are many things that get in the way. Some of them are common to my story. The others are, you know, just some students get discouraged before they leave school because of, depending on what school they're at, or other issues that may deter them from being able to pursue opportunities, and also lack of having mentors. So mentorship matters. Having advocates and champions matter. And until women, and particularly women of color, develop that network, which is it's very small right now as far as the one that I'm in. We are a group called African American Women in Physics, and just to give you some statistical perspective, through the entire history of this nation, there's been approximately just 100 Black women with PhDs in physics. 100. So that number in itself speaks volumes to, you know, how many. And then there was an article written by one of the online publications, and it was a couple of years ago. It said 66,000 white men got their PhDs in physics in a particular 30-year span, and there were only like maybe 20 Black women, 22 Black women, 66,000 white men. Okay. So that was the whole imbalance right there in plain sight.
Yeah, what's your perspective, Dr. Coleman, about how STEM News Chronicle is addressing that issue, the general issue of diversity and women in particular?
Yeah, STEM News Chronicle gives people of all backgrounds in STEM that have an interest, that have expertise, to speak on those types of topics. And so STEM News Chronicle is important and unique because it says, okay, we're going to talk about this right now. If you have something to say about this right now, then submit, you know, what you want to talk about, you know, write it up, obviously, and have data, have perspective, and also have a way that you help the reader figure out some things that may be, you know, part of that issue that was brought up. Okay. So I think STEM News Chronicle does that in every issue, if whatever the topic may be, but it brings that societal impact, as I call it, and cultural relevance, as well as scientific integrity. So those are the three things that must be there in order to even be able to stick your chest out and say, yes, we have a newsletter, we have a publication. Yes, you have to do all three of those things. So that's what STEM News Chronicle does for me. Yeah. And that's why I enjoy interacting with Larry so much. Great. Because
I was intentional when as I asked each of you, Brian and Trina, to participate in this, because, you know, you each have different backgrounds, and so I wanted to have that blended into our discussion. So Brian, why don't you give us your perspective? Tell us what you do, what your business is as well.
Sure. Well, thank you, Larry. And as you said, we won't go into how long we've known each other. But what I will say is that I think a key part of my journey was the fact that I met Larry years ago as a high school student. And it was through my interaction and discussion with him one day at a career fair that helped me make my decision to go into engineering. I knew I wanted to do something in math and science, but I really didn't know, you know, what direction to go, because I didn't know anyone that had done it. And so it's through my conversation with Larry that I ended up at Purdue in electrical engineering. And, you know, we've maintained a personal and professional relationship, you know, throughout the years. My journey largely was utilizing my engineering expertise and problem-solving expertise and applying that in a business environment, working with high-tech companies to understand how technology was evolving and what impact that had on the direction that they went as a business, managing that, and then ultimately becoming a senior executive at several different high-tech companies, which led me into the online space. And now I have a digital marketing agency.
Before we cut off from Zoom, this is a perfect opportunity to address this this coding, this how important people are who know the internet, and how to write these programs, that these kind of things are not happening that frequently. Brian, I believe you were talking about that you have studied engineering and that you are an engineer.
Mhm.
Do you have any insights in, or do you have an idea, a theory about how young people to join this engineering education, so that we do not have these moments we are
Sure.
just experience here on Zoom?
Sure. Well, I think a key element of that is those of us that are scientists or engineers, we need to be visible. We need to be present in young people's lives. They need to have role models that they can see, this is something that they can do. It's not beyond their grasp. And I think part of it is that in some ways, technology has become easier to use. I mean, you think about it, you've got the computing power in a smartphone today that far exceeds what was on the Apollo. So part of it is just connecting with young people in a way that they understand, one, what's possible, and two, that they learn to problem solve and want to be able to problem solve and have some degree of critical thinking as part of their DNA. But yeah, having role models is definitely very important, particularly for, women and minorities in general. And that's one of the things that we've all, tried to do in our involvement in STEM. For me in college, I got involved directly with STEM activities through the National Society of Black Engineers. And so that was a huge resource base for me at Purdue and beyond. And since then, I have been involved in various STEM activities through, every place I've lived, over the past 30 years. And I think that's one of the things I really like about STEM News Chronicle, is that it provides a forum where you can read and discuss these issues in the context of research, hard data, as well as the cultural and societal impacts of these things. This is getting back to one of the comments that Dr. Coleman has said earlier. I don't know of any other vehicle that provides the kind of, research and discussion, information other than STEM News Chronicle. It's one of a kind right now.
Yeah, and if I can interject right now, just for the sake of time, one of the things that Maria had asked me to talk about was what's ahead, what's in the future for STEM News Chronicle, and I'll basically address that from the standpoint of the two newest publications that we've launched on our website. One is the Publisher's Briefcase, and the others is the Reader's Platform. On the Publisher's Briefcase, we've reached out to a group of guest authors, 4 individuals, one of which is Maria. And what they do is they offer at least 2 articles a year on issues dealing with science, education, engineering, and technology, but at a much higher level, to basically engage not only policy issues, but what's going on in society and how that impacts people's lives as well. These publications, the Publisher's Briefcase, are available to our premium subscribers. The other vehicle that we've launched is the Reader's Platform. Our editorial planning board, and Brian serves on that board, basically. That's the group that identifies for us the topics for our subjects in our publications each year. And readers have asked me, can we submit papers outside of those 4 areas? So in response to that, we've launched a readers platform. So twice a year, we will publish just a broad set of articles, reference on particular issues that are going on today. And that will give not only our readers an additional avenue to publish in, but it also broaden our scope. And that's what we consider as an added value as a premium subscriber to STEM News Chronicle and all of our publications.
Now, STEM News Chronicle, what Brian said, creativity and creative thinking and critical thinking, is that something that STEM News Chronicle is also addressing? Because one of the things that is popping up in my mind is hands-on science. Is that also something that STEM News Chronicle is addressing or is promoting, advocating?
Oh yes, yes. As primarily from the educator standpoint, you know, educators, in order to introduce science to youngsters, you can't just talk to them. You got to engage them in project learning exercises that involve hands-on experiences for students. That's the way you get engaged in something. Those type of experience, although sometimes they don't work, they at least open up the youngsters' minds to do other types of things.
Using known science as a basic for exploring all new laws, for instance, in physics or in engineering or chemistry. What I would like to know is from each of you, did you had a role model, and who was this role model, and how did this person influence your journey to that moment that you are right now as a physicist or a publisher or an engineer?
Right. Well, for me, you know, when I started out as a draftsman with the city engineers department in Detroit. And fortunately, that's where I met my first Black engineer. And these, I think there were four or five guys throughout the various departments. They took me under their wing and they gave me the nickname Youngblood. And it was those guys, by sharing with me their journeys, either through civil service or through the military and coming into engineering, gave me sort of the inspiration that I needed to share with youngsters as I've gone through my career. So those were my group of role models. And as Brian said, it is critical. You have to see somebody that looks like you doing what you think you want to do in order to really grasp it as a young person.
And
Yeah.
Dr. Coleman, your role model, who was he or she, and how did it influence your way of thinking and your journey towards, among others, a physicist and I believe a CEO and public speaker?
Yes. Well, when I was growing up, there weren't many role models that, you know, were available to me that looked like me. And I didn't realize that I was that geeky child until I got a little older. Most of my experiences were role models, or more people recognizing my potential and steering me in particular pathways. I didn't get really my first role model and mentor until my freshman year in college. And those people that started to mentor me from that point on are still my mentors. I still stay in touch with my first advisor from college, my academic PhD advisor. So it's important to have people that are your champions, and that they are willing to put the time and the work in to help develop those skill sets that they see in you. So I try to do that and pay that forward to the students that I engage with, because a lot of students don't have access to people that can help them figure out what they want to do or what they like or how to do the things they're interested in doing.
Right, right.
So you became a role model yourself.
Yes, as a matter of fact, I've tried to do that every time I engage with students. I want to share this really quickly. This past term, I taught a modern physics course, upper level a course for physics majors. There were only 4 students in that class, and they were all African American females. Probably never ever happens ever. And then to have an African American female be their professor, that's probably the biggest.
Even more rare, yeah.
I could have hit the Powerball more likelier than for that to happen. So I used to drive 80 miles once a week to go and see them. It was an online class, but I said it was important for them to see my face. So I took it upon myself to go and lecture them in person. So that's what I'm trying to do, is pay it forward in that respect and help them out and be more of a representative, because there are so few of us, as I stated earlier.
Dr. Coleman, I heard that you have an online course in physics and in STEM education, but
Yes.
you, by means of this pandemic that happened and is slightly still happening, you encounter a couple of well, obstacles by being online. So what are your courses teaching young people, and what kind of problems are you bumping into, to say so, when you are online?
Okay, that's a great question. I am teaching for a couple of universities online, but I also have my own course platform that's available to anybody in the world. But what I'm experiencing and have seen in the classroom, particularly since the pandemic, we had a whole lot of things happening simultaneously. For example, police brutality here in the United States, and we had the election and the stuff that happened on January 6th, and that was just in addition to the pandemic. And so my students were going through, as a lot of us were going through, not just academic angst, but societal angst, personal angst, things being, part of their day to day that was causing them additional stresses. One of my students, for example, was a relative of George Floyd's, and she was a student of mine at Bowie. She was an actual relative. So seeing from a STEM perspective,
that must have been a very difficult time for your student.
it was a difficult time for a lot of us. I mean, and she didn't bring it up right away. It was on the day of the verdict, because I had those types of things happening during my class time. It's like trials going on and the verdicts and the things like that, and the new, just so much. And then they're still trying to, get their educations so they can move on and be better citizens, but they're still kind of tainted, not tainted in the sense that they're bad, but they have a different worldview, because the world was so different and is so different for them now. Now, to connect the dot between that and STEM, my course is called, people tend to call physics gatekeeper courses, because they can keep you from being a doctor or something, or a chemist or whatever. You're not trying to be a physicist, but you still have to take physics. So those are the types of challenges that some of my students had, not being able to connect directly, but still having to fulfill that obligation during the pandemic. And so there are a lot of different things, but I tried to be that person to help smooth it out for them as much as I could, because I got it. I understood, what it was like not to have, someone who you could reach out to. And I wanted to be that person, and I try my best to do that for each student.
And this was happening in this small class of 4 females, and
other classes as well. I had classes that had 40. I've been teaching since the pandemic started, because
online?
I was getting calls. Mm-hmm.
Was that an online class?
Online, yes.
Wow.
I taught over 300 students since the pandemic, because they needed physics professors. I mean, there's not that many of us, so I'm getting calls from people. Trina, can you teach this course or that course in physics? And I'm like, yeah, I can do that. I mean, I felt obliged to do it. They were historically Black colleges and universities calling me, and I was not going to say no to them.
Brian, do you also, or have you also experienced by means of your skin color that well, perhaps a study that you wanted to enroll was not available for you, or did not encounter that kind of problems in your journey to an engineer?
I really didn't encounter that. I was fortunate. The environment at Purdue at the time was better than at most predominantly white institutions, largely because we had a strong Society of Black Engineers environment and culture there. That's the Society of Black Engineers actually was founded at Purdue University. And so we had a very strong minority engineering program. So there was a lot of support. Where I encountered those types of things, though, was once I got into the professional world. You know, there's an expectation in the minds of some people that, you know, if you look like me, then you're not as good as other people. And so you're constantly having to prove yourself. And I didn't really have a problem with that. For me, that was motivation. And so in some ways I was able to take advantage of that because if you underestimate what I can do, once I demonstrate what I can do, then you've got to come, you know, you've got to have your come to Jesus moment. You know, you've got to take me seriously. And that's a difficult road for some people to take. You know, I just have thick skin. And so I was able to kind of use that to my advantage. But you know, there have been many times, particularly once I got more on the business side of things, where, you know, I might be talking to, for example, a senior executive at Union Carbide. I was a management consultant at the time for one of the major international management consulting firms. And I had conversations with this person over the phone, and then we finally flew in and had a meeting. And I introduced myself, and you know, you see that look of shock on their face. You know, this can't be you were talking like an intelligent, you know, well-spoken person. Didn't expect it, you know, for it to be someone that looked like me. So, you know, I think we all have had incidents like that, you know, throughout our lives and throughout our careers. And unfortunately, it's just something you got to deal with. And I don't see that changing necessarily anytime soon. But again, just getting back to some of the things we were saying earlier, it's about ultimately, you know, we need to be role models for young people. We have to make sure they understand that there's nothing wrong with being smart, intelligent, articulate, and being responsible for yourself, being the best at whatever it is you're going to do. And when it comes to math and science, one of the things that I've noticed that tends to help is connecting the role that technology plays in creative activities. You know, be it music, be it art, be it video games. Those kinds of things kind of help to excite young people about, you know, pursuing, you know, engineering and science as a way to find creative expression. So, you know, some of the activities I've been involved in the last few years have been oriented that way.
It is, for me, mind-dazzling that there are still people out there in the world who think that or react as if you are not you say it so boldly that you are not a white person, that you are not capable of doing all the stuff that is in science, that is bringing into science. It is still, for me, I cannot wrap my mind around that. I must say, it is for me, yeah. So, but
Yeah.
is this the advice that you can give, that you are giving young people? Then, for instance, from look at me. This is what I encountered. This is what my journey was, and this is how I solved the problem. Is that the advice that you give to young people? Is not to give up, for instance?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And one of the things that I've been able to do is because I've worked in a lot of different industries is I can talk about the time, that I've worked for a video game company, and we're creating video games based on Hollywood movies, and how I was able to use my engineering expertise, to get involved in those kind of activities. I also do a lot in terms of music, and how I've been able to leverage technology, to create my music. So I'm able to bring kind of personal experiences and do it in a way that, it's areas or subjects that the young people can relate to. And then ultimately, it just also means, what are some of the life skills? You have to persevere, be the best that you can be, have confidence in yourself. So, those are things I try to relate and communicate to the young people that I work with.
It is a little bit hard and tough to have this confidence, like what Dr. Coleman just mentioned, that one of her students, being relative to Floyd, I believe Floyd was his name. It's very hard to have this build up this confidence. So yes, I can understand that you and Dr. Coleman and Larry are fighting to be this role model, to explain your story, your journey, and how that young people should hold on to that dream of being a scientist, an engineer, or whatever they want to be in their lives. Dr. Coleman, you are advocating STEM, like you say. You also have this online courses. You teach online. What, according to you, is the core of the importance of STEM education?
Wow, that's a good question. The importance of STEM education is that it expands beyond just STEM. Getting a fundamental understanding of what STEM is and looking at how it impacts everyone from day to day is important for the general public. And I think that would help change attitudes about science and math and those things, and expand opportunities and potential for students, and also parents who have students that they need to sometimes help with their schoolwork. I mean, but because most people, I've encountered college students who couldn't tell me what STEM stood for. They don't know, and a lot of people don't know. So I think that the relevance of having some level of STEM literacy, as it is called sometimes, is important for everyone. My endeavors include trying to bring people content. I create digital content and audio and all of that, so that they can learn at their own pace about whatever they want to know about STEM. Some of it is enrichment stuff. Some of it is, purely academic, to either be a supplemental course or just because you need to know. So there's a lot of ways that STEM knowledge can be gained beyond the traditional paths. But I also try to keep it real with students, particularly the female students, that it's not, a cakewalk. These programs that are out and these summer camps and all of that stuff, they sound good and they make the sponsors look good because it looks like they're doing something. But after the camp is over, then what? So those are the types of questions that me and once again me and my colleagues and even Brian, he has to also navigate that space, and particularly Larry, who provides the platform for us to talk about these things. How do we get students? Because a few minutes ago we were talking about coding. Yeah, coding is awesome. Learn how to code, do some coding, build an app, whatever. But when it's time to get a career or move into the workplace, we are now looking at the fact that it's more important to this country to be able to provide visas to bring in people from other countries to do the work that we're telling our students that they should be interested in. So that conundrum to me is troubling.
STEM or STEAM? Your opinion, Dr. Coleman. STEM or STEAM?
STEM or STEAM? That's a good question. STEAM is cool because if you look at it, now I'll compare it to a bridge. This is one of the lessons I teach my physical science students. I have a picture of a bridge, and then I have this paragraph that is written about it, and it talks about all of the different components from the engineering to the math and all of that as it relates to the construction of this bridge. But part of what bridges have built into all of the construction and the choice of materials and all that stuff is how it looks. So the art and the architectural design of a bridge technically puts it in the STEAM category. So I think form and function go together. I am very much in tune with that. I worked on this thing and I do it a lot to change it up, but STEAM is great. But am I an artist? No, I am not. But I am not opposed to incorporating the two, as long the art with the STEM, as long as the STEM parts are focused on as much as the art part. And that comes back around to, are you truly a STEM person if you're providing a course or an outlet for students? Are you just an artist or something that's wrapping a little bit of STEM around art? And so I look at it from those two perspectives.
Well, if I'm looking at a physics formula, to me, that is art, because
Yes.
that's so beautiful, falling into each other like a puzzle. You can, with that kind of formulas, you can calculate anything from to height to depth to create that bridge. Brian, the same question for you: STEM or STEAM, and why, according to you?
Well, I actually think that the arts, for me personally, they've always been very important part of just who I am and what I do. And it's helped me to, I think, be better at science, math, and technology in general. My issue with STEAM, though, is that what I see, how it has been implemented thus far throughout various programs that I've seen around the country, is that once the arts have been added into STEM to become STEAM, then there's less emphasis on STEM. And so, I'd like to see us maybe in a few years get to the point where, it becomes truly integrated. But right now, I if there is, our programs focused on STEM, I'd like to see them stay focused on STEM and get that right, because, it's still an evolving, set of programs and priorities. I just don't want to see the arts, reduce the focus on STEM. And that's what I've seen happen in many cases. So at this point, I'm still a STEM person, but I'm hopeful that in the near future, STEAM will become the way.
I can imagine that the art in engineering or in coding, for instance, is visualizing the world behind the coding, and by means of that vision that people have, that they can create these formulas for us to have no disconnection with Zoom, and that we are starting to understand our future smart houses.
Celebrating mistakes, appreciating the differences, relaying feedback, and evaluating yourself. I think the bottom line is that great teachers care. Even though most of you who are listening to this podcast might not be an educator in the clinical sense of the term, but every one of you is a teacher. Think about the difference that you can make and show young people that you care. I think Maya Angelou said it the best. She said, people will forget what you said. People will forget what you did for them, but they will never forget how you made them feel. And this is the best part, which you already know deep down in your heart. The only thing you as a mentor, as STEAM or STEM leader have to do is to merge these 4 points to your present teaching skills. So if we bring our motivation and our passion into the 21st century, if we get past this lazy, dangerous ideology of sweet carrots and sharp sticks, we can strengthen our education programs. We can solve a lot of those candle problems, and maybe, just maybe, we can change the world. Mr. King, Dr. Coleman, and Mr. Saunders, thank you so much for talking to you. But before we close out, can you tell us where we can find more information about STEM News Chronicle, about your publications and your work as a physicist, engineer, or publisher? Dr. Coleman, if you would do the honor to answer this one first.
Sure. I think Larry is better equipped to answer the how to get in touch with STEM News Chronicle piece. But if you want to get in touch with me regarding STEM education or outreach or public speaking or talk about physics or whatever you want to do, you can reach me at Twitter at DRTLC, which are my initials, Dr. Trina Coleman. So DRTLC is my Twitter handle. You can reach me on LinkedIn at Dr. Trina L. Coleman, or you can reach me on my website at stemskills.online.
Brian, the same question for you. Where can we find information about you, and how can people get in touch with you if they have questions about your work, your publications, your engineering?
Well, the best way to reach me is, through my website, company website, which is Agent High Five Marketing. And the URL is agent5.com. And you can reach me via email at brian@agenthighfive.com. And in terms of the Chronicle, I encourage you to visit the website, which is snchronicle.com. And on the website, there's all the information that you need in order to find out how to submit papers, We have call for papers published that let you know, kind of what's coming up in the next issue. And you also can join and become a premium member, where you get access to the premium content that's on the website as well.
Well, Maria, you said you wanted to wrap up with me explaining how folks can get in touch with STEM News Chronicle, etc. And that's why the short video I said I wanted to upload and share so everybody can see it. So I'll do that now.
I'd like to thank you all for tuning in today on the Next Truth podcast's Let's Ask Questions. Make sure to visit our website. That is www.nexttruth.com. That is nexttruth, all in one word, .com. And let us know what you think about our podcasts. While you're at it, if you find value in this show, we would appreciate a rating on our website in the section Testimonials. Or subscribe to our YouTube channel and share the links on your social media. I am Maria-Anna van Dreil with the Next Truth. Let's Ask Questions. Be sure to stay tuned for our next episode.